So this is the second part video, the final one, where I'm going through a competitive deck that I reconstructed last year for an ARG tournament that I think happened in summer of 2016. That was Alice cluster only. It must have been, because every single card in the deck, in the 4 decks that I've reconstructed from the top 8 are from the Alice cluster. So I'm going to continue. I already talked in the first video, and this is all on the same playlist, about the regalia that is used by the deck and all the red critters in the deck. This one's red-green. Of course, Guinevere, awesome card, and Rock Egg, awesome card. Okay, so let's just keep going through the deck. So it's got a playset of Necromancy of the Undead Lord. And what does this card do? It's you add it to a resonator, so it's really like an enchantment creature aura in Magic, and it gives a plus 200/200, which is great. But the other clause, which is really even more amazing, whenever a resonator enters your field, you may add this card from your graveyard to that resonator. That's great, because if you're in the course of battle, 2 of these things land on your graveyard and you cast something else, boom, you're putting +4/+4 on it, and there's no cost. You just do it. I mean, that's beastly. Okay, there's one of this card, which is Flame King's Shout for 1 red, and of course this only costs 1 black will. And then this card deals 400 damage to each resonator your opponent controls, so it can be a board wipe. Then you may put a fire resonator with total cost 3 or less from your hand into your field. It gains swiftness, so if it gains swiftness you can hit with it. That's pretty good. Then 2, 3 of this guy, which is Blood Boil. Yeah, Blood Boil. Choose 1. This card deals 600 damage to your opponent. Your opponent cannot gain life until end of turn, or target resonator you control gains +8/+8, and then you destroy it at the end of turn. Destroy the resonator. That's great. That's a great set of options. Then 2 of these blades, Blood-Covered War Axe. Added resonator gains +4/0, and whenever this card attacks, it deals 200 damage to each other resonator. You got to be careful, because it can take out your own resonators. But yeah, there you have it, and it's for all of a single mana of single will of red fire. Okay, so then Flame Trap is a standby, so when you pay 2 and you put it in your standby area, and then it's got a trigger clause that happens with standby chance or chance standbys. How does it trigger? You control a Firestone. You're going to do that in this deck for sure, and your opponent controls 4 or more resonators. This card deals 800 damage to each resonator your opponent controls. That's fantastic. Okay, that is a very good control card. Then only one, and this is the last card in the main deck, of Barrier of Shadows. What does it do? Your opponent pays 1 more to pay Judgment or God's Art abilities. Your opponent pays 1 more to play Regalia's activate abilities. The difference between playing Regalia for 0 and playing Regalia for 1 is very large. Okay, that's one thing that I think all 0 cost cards teach their designers. So this is great for in a Regalia versus Regalia deck, and there's only 1 in the main deck. It's got a playset of Ruler's Memoria, which was a lot cheaper when I reconstructed these decks than it is these days. Thank God for that. And if you don't control a Regalia, this enters rested. You're gonna probably control a Regalia in this deck when you're playing it, and when you tap it, you can produce any will. Can't beat that. And then you've got 6 fire will, and then let's just go briefly through the sideboard. So one thing that I'm learning is that I can do the other 3 decks in a single video. This video turned out to be 2 videos because I talked a lot more about some cards that I'm not going to discuss in length when I talk. I mean, I'm not going to discuss Refrain in the length that I did in the previous video. And this video is going to be short because of that. Matter of fact, I could almost sneak in the second reflect refrain deck in here, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it so as the part 2 of the first reflect refrain deck that I reconstructed of the 2. Okay, so I already talked about this card. There's one of them. I've already discussed this card, and there's another one. This one I think completes a playset. Another Barrier of Shadows, and then I can talk about Maribel. So Maribel, the Steel Doll, which by the way, I love the artwork on this card, and I love the foils. I've got a couple of foils. I just love the way it looks. Okay, so if your J Ruler would be dealt damage, prevent 200 of it. I'm not sure that matters here because the way Reflect Refrain is worded, any damage you deal to it, it doesn't do anything because it doesn't have any attack or defense. Then for 5, this card becomes a 1,000 machine resonator until end of turn. It is still a Regalia, and if your J Ruler is Machina, you pay 2 less to play it, but this is not a Machina deck. And then for 1 and you tap it, banish it, destroy target Regalia. That's more important, I think. That's really good. I would use it for that. I don't really care so much about. Yeah, it could be something that allows me to survive if I'm getting slaughtered, but that one clause I think is the better clause for the card. Then 2 Death Sights. I love pulling this card. I could pull another 500 of them. Number 1, it's not banned, and number 2, it's a fantastic card because your opponent's J Ruler loses and cannot gain Imperishable and Swiftness. I mean, that's one heck of a control clause, and it's just stapled on it. It doesn't cost anything. When you tap it, your J Ruler gains 200, doesn't do anything here. And if it's Resard, it gains, whenever the Resonator that was dealt damage by this card this turn is put into a graveyard, you put it into your field, and until end of turn you may pay 1 less to play Resard's God's ability. Remove 3 cards in your graveyard from the game, put this card from your graveyard into your hand. That's good because you're not really in a graveyard deck in here so much. And so you're gonna have 3 cards that you can get rid of to get this back, and you only have 2, but you can use them multiple times. You're really using it for the staple clause, the fact that it's really an anti-J Ruler card. Okay. Then Horn of Sacred Beast, which is also banned. Produce 1. Spend this will only to play 4 Sacred Beasts cards. Didn't see any Sacred Beast cards in here, so I don't think you're going to use that. Tap it. You give +2/+2 to your J Ruler. If it's Prisia, it gains Imperishable. This is not a Prisia deck. Then the last clause, banish it. Target player shuffles all Magic Stones from his or her graveyard into his or her Magic Stone deck. Then shuffles all other cards from his or her graveyard into his or her main deck. That's the clause that I would use it for. So it's a great recovery. You're down to, you've got a lot of really good cards in your graveyard, but it's going to cost you your stones. So you're going to target all your stone. You're going to start the game basically. I don't know. I would use it against the opponent for sure. Because even though I'm giving my opponent the ability to have their full main deck again, I'm setting their stone clock to 0. That's what I would do. I wouldn't do it on myself. I'd do it on my opponent. Moonbeam, probably the only card worth pulling out of Battle for Ataraxia that I can tell. Well, besides, there's another one on one of these other decks. It destroys target J Ruler. Players cannot chase to this card, meaning it cannot be countered. This card was very, very unpopular when it came out. I think it was needed to police Reflect Refrain decks, but yeah, it was a very controversial card when it came out. Then 2 from the great the Moonlit Savior set that has all these really good commons and uncommons. 2 wins a Secluded Refuge. When this card enters your field, draw a card. I already like it. When a spell or ability your opponent controls targets a J Resonator you control, you may banish this card. If you do, cancel that spell or ability. That's great. It's an addition field, so you just put it on your field. So it's a counter spell and it draws you cards. I'll take it. I'll take 5,000 of them. Thank you. Then, incredibly enough, another card from Battle for Ataraxia, the last drop. Choose one, you gain 1,000 life, or put target Resonator with total cost 2 or less from your graveyard into your field rested. That's not bad. And then 2 of this card, which is, some of these cards are hard to read and I don't know them from memory. Separation of Body and Soul. Destroy target Resonator with attack different from its printed attack or defense different from its printed defense. Yeah, so somebody's boosting something with Regalia, you zap it with this. Or anything else, but it's going to be Regalia in these decks. Certo, the Blazing Volcano. It's a field edition, also a mountain. Players cannot gain life. Whenever a Resonator is put into a graveyard from a field, this card deals 100 damage to each player. That includes you. Yeah, okay, so there you have it. That is the first of the 4 decks. It ended up being 2 videos. I'm not sure how it's going to be for the other decks. Hopefully I can squeeze each one into a video. Thank you.